Hello, my name is Kevin Walgamuth, and I am an English language arts teacher in the sixth grade at Selbyville Middle School for the Indian River School District. And this is my deck toy that I have designed for narrative conflict with sixth graders. So the major focus of this lesson is to build upon narrative vocabulary and narrative writing skills. And I used this as more of a review activity. This could certainly be used to introduce narrative and narrative vocabulary to sixth grade students, but for the purpose of my deck toy, I really wanted to make it usable for my current classroom, and I was able to do that. And I have used it in class. We did it the other day, and the kids loved it, and they were super engaged. And I was able to, without overwhelming them with a difficult platform or deck toy, I was able to make it easy enough where they could navigate it for the first time without being frustrated, but also challenging enough where they were engaged and it kept their attention. So the first thing that they will find when they start my pair deck or my deck toy is the entry is where they're introduced to the theme. So the theme of this deck toy is the students are crossing the Montana wilderness, and their goal is to move across the wilderness and take books that are narratives to this cabin that has been without entertainment for several months through the winter. So their voyage is to come down here and either go up, which is the more difficult path, or down, which is an easier path, and to find their way to the cabin at the end. So, first, after they hit start and they go to their first multimedia activity, when they enter, they will be prompted to join Pear Deck. So, Pear Deck is a presentation tool that my district uses and that I currently use every day. And it is a way to make Google Slides interactive. So, when they join the Pear Deck, and it will ask them to log in with their Google account. So, if you, the instructor, or anyone watching this video goes through the deck toy, it will prompt you when you enter this first step to log into Pear Deck, and all you need to do is click log in. A window launches and it asks you which Google account you would like to use, and then you enter. So they see this first slide, then they see the essential question: how does the author use conflict to develop the plot in a narrative text? And here are the lesson goals: to identify the elements of plot, distinguish between types of conflict, and apply lesson vocabulary to build your own narrative. So one thing we frequently do in the Indian River School District is we present the essential question to students, and then we break down some of the bigger vocabulary words within the essential question. So one of the things students will do in this first slide is they will find synonyms for conflict and narrative, and they will click this T, and then they will type those synonyms above conflict and narrative, and they'll be able to edit that. Then they will look at their vocabulary, some of the elements of plot, and they will match them with their correlating definition using these draw line features. Then students will review the two types of conflict, internal and external, and then they will complete a couple activities where they review that and distinguish between the two types of conflict. But this is really just the introduction to the deck. Okay. Then, after that, they will move into their first set activity, which are all the words that are associated with this lesson. So, internal conflict, rising action, resolution, exposition, climax, falling action, conflict, external conflict. So, once the students finish this matching activity, they will be given a key, the gold key. And they will need that key to enter, if they were doing the more difficult path, to enter the maze activity up here, or to enter the memory activity down here. So after they successfully match their vocab set for the first time, they will come to this choose a path section, where they choose up or red for the more difficult path, or the green path, which is a little bit easier, which is this path down here. So students choose this path for more of a challenge, and this path if they're looking for something a little bit easier, and I leave that choice up to them. So when students go down here, they will find conflict drawing, where they watch a multimedia video where they are introduced or review the two types of conflict in video form. And then they come down here and again, they join another Pear Deck, which is a slide presentation. They're asked to draw an example of an internal conflict and then an example of an external conflict. Then, let's go back to the map. Students who choose the more difficult path will watch the same video, but will be asked to, for the internal conflict, they will be asked to include a setting in their drawing and some sort of speech bubble or description so the reader or viewer of their art can see what the internal struggle is. Excuse me. And for the external conflict, they must include a dialogue between two characters and a setting as well. So just a little more challenging than the path that went down. I did want to leave student choice for the difficulties and student choice for what they would like to draw or create. But at the same time, I did not want to. When I first did the deck toy that was introduced in our class, I felt a little overwhelmed as somebody who considers themselves pretty good with technology. And with 11, for me, it was good. It was a challenge, and it helped me understand what Deck.Toys was. But for my students who are 11 and 12, and this platform is brand new for them, I wanted them to have a clear path to finishing the deck toy without being too confused by multiple pathways. So for this first deck toy that I introduced them to, I just gave them two choices for a path. They can go on the more difficult path up here or the easier path down here. So then these students will have a word search with some of these vocabulary words that were introduced up here. And these students will use their lock that they earned here and unlock the maze activity for this set. And then these students will move on to the memory set, and they will need their lock that they got from here. Okay, so the final step for the easier route, again, is a Pear Deck, and you can write in Pear Deck. So they are introduced to a prompt, and then they click answer questions, and they will answer. But this says you are almost there. To achieve this final goal, you must write your own creative narrative. So narratives are defined as nonfiction or fiction, and they must include all the elements of plot. So exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and a resolution. So that's the easier path. And students who take the more difficult path will be given a very similar prompt, but along with the elements of plot, they are also asked to provide descriptive language to develop a setting and introduce two or more characters with some dialogue. So just a little bit more of a challenge, a little more rigorous for the students who chose the difficult path. So I believe that this deck toy that I have designed is between the A- and the A category. I clearly introduced the learning goals in the opening Pear Deck. The theme, I designed this background, and it was really cool to do because Deck.Toys made it very easy to add images in the back and move them where you wanted them and move it to the front or the back as needed. And all these images were on Deck.Toys image board as you search things. Like all I did for this one was search cabinet, and it gave me a bunch of different images that I could use. So I built this, and I built the pathway. So I believe the theme is engaging, and my students were engaged when they did this. So students do have a choice. They can choose which path they would like to go on, and they have various choice in what story they would like to create, what they would like to draw. And they can also go back, and I had some students who finished the more difficult stage, and they wanted to actually try out some of the stuff. So they went back and they could choose which activities they wanted to do and which ones they didn't want to do once they had already completed the quest and gotten to the cabin. So there is a combination of multimedia and sets. I try to do some videos, but also I try to get students to draw. I try to get them to write a good bit and just the matching activities work. So there was a good combination of that too. And I would say that my breakout strategy could be a little more difficult because really all they have to do is complete this match game, which they need to complete anyway to move on to any of these steps. And then they get a key, which unlocks here and here. Again, I wanted to keep this kind of basic for my sixth graders who have been flooded with technology since we began the year, and it's really been effective and they're loving it. But I did not want to throw them into a deck toy that was a little more above their skill levels at this time. So I wanted to keep it somewhat simple and just kind of introduce them to a lot of the interesting features that deck toy has to offer before really getting complex with multiple pathways and multiple keys and a more complicated breakout box session. Okay, well, thank you for watching my video. I appreciate your time. One more thing I wanted to talk about was when I was doing this, an effective strategy for me to organize everything that I embedded into the deck toy was to open up a Google file that kind of correlated with it because each Pear Deck that I installed, so each activity that the students followed along with as they were meeting their learning goals was correlated to a different slide. So I kind of had to keep it all organized in here. So that's something that I found to be helpful while I was planning differentiation and student choice throughout this activity. So thank you again. My name is Kevin Walgamuth, and thanks for watching.